Coming up on this edition of Second Alarm, we'll learn about the Spokane Fire Department's Prevention Division and the vital role they play in keeping Spokane safe. We'll take a tour of the Agnes Kehoe Place in Hilliard and learn how the Spokane Housing Authority and the Fire Department work to make these apartments a model for fire safety. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Second Alarm. Hello and welcome to this edition of Second Alarm. I'm Assistant Chief Brian Schaefer. Fires can be devastating for a business. Nationwide, 80% of businesses who have a fire will never reopen. Spokane Fire Marshal Lisa Jones has more on the Fire Department's fire inspection program and how it's working to keep Spokane businesses safe and sound.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Deputy Fire Marshal Brett Hatcher. I'm just here to do your annual safety inspection. Okay. So if we can just take a look at all of the fire suppression systems and exits.
The Fire Prevention Division, also known as the Fire Marshal's Division, has a goal and mission of keeping people safe. That includes buildings, occupants of buildings, and our firefighters. And the building code and the fire code work very well together to provide that public safety, occupant safety, firefighter safety. So our job is primarily to make sure that, we do inspections, we do fire protection engineering when somebody has a new building project. We also inspect several of the existing buildings.
We've got an exit here with emergency lighting. We've got one over there. So you've got your two exits.
Under the fire code, there's a number of higher hazard type occupancies or operations that require an annual inspection from our office. So there'll be things like places of public assembly, restaurants, bars, schools, libraries, gymnasiums that have also serve as craft fair dance halls from time to time. We inspect auto repair garages, places where they have propane gas or other compressed gases or other hazardous materials.
Sprinkler and alarm both need to be annually inspected, so that's good.
The basics are checking for safe exiting, access, and egress. So the hallways need to be free from storage and clear. Exits have to be plainly marked. A lot of times there's lighted exit signs over exit doors, and it's important that those signs remain lighted.
All right, you've got an exit light out here. Will need to be repaired. Emergency lights are working. That's good.
I'll get a new bulb in there.
Okay, that'd be great.
If you don't keep up on maintenance, the bulbs get burnt out. So pretty easy to change the bulbs out. But I think the people that live and work in buildings, they just forget, don't even look at them anymore. But that's a really easy fix. It's just a maintenance item to walk through your hallways, make sure they're safe, they're clear, they're lit, the exit signs are lit and well marked. We check for fire extinguishers. There's portable fire extinguishers required about every 3,000 square feet or within 75 feet of walking distance. Again, pretty easy. And they're due for service every year.
Right here I see we've got the floors are marked so people know what floor they're on, or even the firemen coming up know what floor. And we've got our standpipe that the fire department hooks our hoses to in case of a fire up here.
We're really looking for just minimally safe buildings. If people go above and beyond the minimum safety requirements, that's great. But we'd really like to see that building owners and managers take it upon themselves to keep their buildings safe. It's in their own best interest, ultimately, and the more that we can help them identify what the minimum requirements are and work with them as far as training or education, the better we all are.
Well, I appreciate your time, Francis.
Yes, I appreciate you.
It was great.
Thank you very
Give me a
much.
call when you get those lights fixed, those exit lights fixed.
Will do.
All right, I appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
sir.
You bet. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
This March, the Agnes Kehoe Apartments in Hilliard held their grand opening. The building, the old Hilliard High School, has undergone a complete renovation, now provides 55 units of affordable housing to the neighborhood. The Spokane Housing Authority and the Spokane Fire Department have worked closely to make sure that the building has the latest in fire safety technology.
The
We're at the Agnes Kehoe Place, which was formerly known as the Martindale Apartments. We're celebrating the opening event, or the grand opening event of this building. It was transformed from a previous apartment building, and originally it had been a high school and then a community center and then for housing for many years. And we purchased the building about 4 years ago, had to line up all the funding, and then rehabilitated this structure completely.
The conditions here warranted just full building closure, and in fact it was boarded and fenced for a number of years. As you can see by the Spokane Housing Authority's report, they've spent a little over $7 million. It was a major undertaking. They didn't have to, you know, like I said, they put some things in here. They went above and beyond the basic code requirements, and they've made a really lovely, you know, living space for people.
New systems, new safety systems, and I think that's one of the features that makes it excellent, is a variety of suppression systems, sprinklers, fire alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, and the safety element incorporated in the burners, because we find that sometimes many of the fires start in the kitchen, and so we wanted to be able to prevent that.
662 degrees, food still cooks like it always did, but you stay under auto ignition temperature. You stay under auto ignition temperature of oil, sleeves. I mean, I'd do that with my suit coat, but it might melt it. But basically, sleeves going across the top, combustibles too close, you know, all your basic stuff, oil. I can put a pan of oil on this. We went through UL 858. I can put a pan of oil on this for 20 hours on high and it'll never catch on fire. And sort of the classic example of what I'm talking about here is, I defy you to do that with any other stove. I can sit here and I can do a full roll and boil over a piece of paper. This thing, it'll off gas, it'll pyrolyze, but it'll never ignite.
We worked very closely with the fire department, and that's what I appreciate, is the fire department and the building officials were key and partners in helping us make this a better and safer development, especially when you have 51 households and you want to make sure that they're all safe.
Low-income housing or affordable housing doesn't have to mean unsafe, substandard conditions. That's oftentimes what you see. You know, low-income housing doesn't have to be congruent with shabby conditions. It shouldn't be. It should never be so dangerous that, you know, you've got to worry about surviving through the night, and we have to worry about trying to effect evacuation or fire effort there. This building is a model. It's quite an achievement. What a gift to the neighborhood.
As part of our efforts to teach hands-only CPR to the Spokane community, the Spokane Fire Department has produced 2 educational videos for Spokane area schools. The goal is to get every student trained in hands-only CPR and AED use by the time they graduate. Even though the target audience is students, the videos contain life-saving information for everyone.
It's a scene that happens all too frequently in this country.
Star player Wes Leonard collapsed on the court just moments after making the game-winning basket.
It will be at least a week before we know exactly what caused the sudden death of Hank Gathers.
This time it was 16-year-old Robert Garza.
It happens roughly 75 times a year in the United States alone.
A student collapses and dies on the court or field. When a tragedy like this happens, people often think there's nothing they can do. But there is. Immediate treatment before paramedics arrive with cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, and an automated external defibrillator, or AED, gives the victim the best chance at life. Sudden cardiac arrest can strike anyone at any age at any time.
Playing basketball in the gym and I just collapsed. I had no idea that I was at any risk and suffered a cardiac arrest. And luckily, thankfully, CPR was started right away, and I'm here today because of that.
And I ran out here and Tori was on the ground and I just called 911 immediately.
Carrie Conger helped save Tori's life by starting CPR.
It took me a long time to come to terms with what I did. I still haven't completely. It's still a complete shock that this happened. Tori's such an amazing person and not someone I would ever peg as someone who would have cardiac arrest, and not someone I would ever, you know, I wouldn't see her walking down the street and go, she's gonna have cardiac arrest.
I never thought that CPR would have to be used on me, and it saved my life. And I mean, I am so grateful for that.
Tori was one of the lucky ones. It is estimated that more than 95% of sudden cardiac arrest victims die before reaching a hospital, resulting in approximately 250,000 deaths each year in the U.S. Only 1 in 4 patients in cardiac arrest receives bystander CPR. If CPR is performed, you can double or triple a person's chance of survival. Based upon the overwhelming support for early bystander and community involvement, the American Heart Association has revised their CPR guidelines to include hands-only CPR as the preferred method of resuscitation for the untrained bystander. In addition, there is an emphasis in the community to increase AED availability to ensure the likelihood of early defibrillation.
If you look at the curves that have been established for people's survival in this setting, what you find is only about 10% of the people will survive if they get shocked at 8 minutes. But if good chest compressions are started right away when the person goes down, you can alter that death curve, if you will, significantly, such that people will respond to electricity for quite a bit longer. And in fact, at 8 minutes, if CPR is started immediately at 8 minutes, we have more like a 40 to 50% chance of saving someone's life.
Over the next 2 class periods, we will train you to become effective responders in the case of sudden cardiac arrest. You will be able to identify when to start chest compressions and how to perform them to ensure that they are high quality. You will be trained to use an AED and where to find the AED in your school. Finally, we will practice both CPR and AED use to ensure that any victims have the best chances for survival. Simply stated, cardiac arrest is when the heart is no longer pumping blood through the body. The victim is unconscious, not breathing, and has no pulse. If not immediately treated, the victim will most probably die. Cardiac arrest and heart attack are not the same thing. A heart attack can cause a cardiac arrest, but there are other causes. What you need to remember is, regardless of what caused the cardiac arrest, good skills and rapid treatment are the keys to survival. Remember that every second counts for victims of cardiac arrest, and at 10 minutes after collapse, they have a minimal chance of surviving. So do whatever you can do as fast as you can do it. The American Heart Association has simplified this urgency into the chain of survival. 1. Early access. Call 911. 2. Early CPR. Start chest compressions. 3. Early defibrillation. Use an AED. 4. Early advanced care. Paramedics. In most cases, paramedics can't respond and arrive at the patient's side quickly enough for the patient's sake. Now that AEDs are available to non-medically trained people, you can become a vital link in this chain of survival. New guidelines from the American Heart Association recommend hands-only or compression-only CPR for non-medically trained individuals. Fortunately, these recommendations make CPR much easier to perform and dramatically increase the likelihood of a response from bystanders.
It has significant benefits in a lot of ways. First of all, it's a much easier way to do CPRs. It's not that difficult to learn how to do it. You don't have to try to coordinate breaths and chest compressions, etc. The other thing is that large studies have been done that show that what causes people to be reticent about doing a resuscitation on a neighbor or loved one or someone who just goes down in the public is that folks are afraid of communicable diseases. They don't want to have to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
This new guideline is recommended only for adults in cardiac arrest. It is not intended as the primary response for children or victims of drowning. When adding breaths to chest compressions is still recommended, although it is accepted that any effort is better than no effort.
Hey buddy, you okay?
If you witness someone collapse, immediately call 911 or direct someone else to activate the emergency response system by calling 911. Shake the person or rub their chest hard to get a response. If you do not get a response, start CPR immediately. Do not wait to check for a pulse. Position the patient with their back on the floor or ground. Place the heel of one hand over the center of their chest over the breastbone and place your second hand with fingers interlocked over the first. With your elbows locked, apply a downward force by falling into the patient so that the motion is directed from your torso and not your arms. High-quality CPR consists of 4 critical variables: depth of 2 inches, rate of 100, full recoil of the chest, minimal interruption. Most individuals can only perform high-quality CPR for 2 minutes before fatigue sets in. To ensure that your victim receives only high-quality CPR, you should switch providers every 2 minutes. Remember to coordinate the switch so that there is minimal interruption or no pause at all. The reason why these criteria are important is to ensure the forward progression of blood flow to the brain. By pressing 2 inches deep, we ensure that the heart pumps blood effectively. Full recoil ensures that the heart fills completely for the next effective compression. Studies show that a rate of 100 compressions per minute is ideal to ensure forward flow of blood to the brain.
It's difficult for some people to remember 100 per minute or figure out what that is unless they have a metronome. So what I usually say is sing the song by the Bee Gees, you know, da, 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 staying alive, staying alive. If you sing it at the rate that they sang it, then that pretty much will pace you at 100.
It takes several compressions to get forward progress of blood to the brain, so any pause effectively becomes a loss of momentum and therefore makes subsequent compressions less effective. Remember, you can only help someone by performing CPR. Do not worry about breaking ribs or harming the victim of cardiac arrest. Studies confirm that minimal harm is incurred by individuals that require chest compressions, and the benefits of CPR are life-saving and worth the risk.
But at the very worst, you might break a rib or 2. But on the other hand, if you save their life, they're going to be grateful for a broken rib.
The goal of high-quality CPR is to improve the patient's response to defibrillation or electric shock and maintain blood supply to the brain. CPR does not restart the heart, but will improve the likelihood of the heart responding to an electrical shock, which will help the heart start beating again. Remember that high-quality CPR directly improves an individual's potential response to a shock. If that shock is provided within 10 minutes of collapse, and high-quality CPR is started immediately, the individual's potential survival rate is dramatically increased. Without both of these interventions, the death rate is nearly 100%, so act quickly and activate the 911 systems immediately. Remember the 4 components of high-quality CPR: depth 2 inches, rate of 100 compressions per minute, full recoil, and minimal interruptions. Yesterday, we discussed the recognition of cardiac arrest and why early CPR and activation of the emergency response system is critical for survival. Remember to call 911 early or direct someone else to do so. Recall the 4 components of high-quality CPR: depth, recoil, rate, and minimal interruption. All of these increase the likelihood of a victim to receive and respond well to electrical defibrillation.
Shock advised. Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
We know from resuscitation science that the earlier a shock is delivered, the increased likelihood that it will restart the heart of a person with cardiac arrest. AEDs, or automated external defibrillators, are one way of ensuring that victims of cardiac arrest receive an electrical shock as soon as possible. Many public facilities, such as schools, malls, churches, airports, have AEDs available for public use. Your school has 1 or more AEDs available for use, and it is important that everyone be familiar with its location and know how to use it. In addition, it is important to notify the appropriate individuals if you notice that the AED has been tampered with or is missing. It is critical that the device operates and is available when it is needed. You already know how to perform high-quality CPR. After today, you will know how to pair that CPR training with the use of an AED. Each of you will have an opportunity to become familiar with an AED, how to apply the chest patches, and how to deliver a life-saving shock, all while performing high-quality CPR. This requires teamwork to maximize the resuscitation effort, but it can be done by a single individual as well. An automated external defibrillator, AED, is a smart machine designed to detect whether a cardiac arrest victim would benefit from a defibrillation shock and to instruct the operator to perform all facets of treating the victim until paramedics arrive. An AED is simple and safe to use.
The ultimate therapy for these patients is electricity. But what you do with good cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, hands-only CPR specifically if you're a citizen responder, is you prolong that period of time during which a person's heart will be responsive to the electricity.
The heart is much like any other highly efficient machine. It has an electrical system that tells the heart to pump and a mechanical system that responds by pumping. The AED is designed to analyze the heart rhythm and allow a shock delivered to those patients whose electrical system is malfunctioning in a rhythm called ventricular fibrillation.
Ventricular fibrillation is an arrhythmia in which the lower chambers of the heart, the ventricles, are just quivering. It doesn't mean they're weak, but electrically they become more or less dissociated with one another such that the muscle of the heart itself is just quivering and can't generate a good forceful contraction.
By delivering a shock, this chaos is stopped so the heart's natural pacemaker can resume a regular rhythm, once again pumping blood around the body. Successful defibrillation diminishes rapidly over time. If the victim is not in ventricular fibrillation, the AED will instruct you to perform CPR. The AED instructs you every step of the way. 1. Turn the AED on. Place the AED by the person's shoulder and turn it on. 2. Follow the AED instructions.
Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest.
The AED will talk to you and tell you to attach the pads to the bare chest. It will tell you if and when you have to press the shock button.
Don't touch patient analyzing.
Do not touch the person when the AED is analyzing the heart rhythm, and do not touch the person if and when you press the shock button. AEDs will not allow a shock unless it detects ventricular fibrillation. You cannot make it shock any other time. You cannot harm the victim in any way. The only possible danger is if 1. You are sharing water with the victim. If the victim is in a puddle of water, move them to a dry area. You don't want your knees in the victim's puddle of water. Water conducts electricity. 2. You are sharing metal with the victim. Just make sure the patient is not touching any kind of metal. Metal conducts electricity. 3. Make sure no one is touching the patient when a shock is delivered. Always visually confirm this before pushing the shock button. AEDs will cue rescuers to stand clear when a shock is advised. 4. Do not use an AED on anyone under 8 years old. Cardiac arrest can occur at any time. It is important that witnesses of cardiac arrest respond immediately and without delay. Any unnecessary delay decreases a victim's chance for survival. Remember the key components to a successful resuscitation. 1. Early activation of the emergency response system, 911. 2. High-quality CPR. A. Depth, 2 inches. B. Full chest recoil. C. Rate of 100 compressions per minute. D. Minimal interruption. 3. Early defibrillation. This life-saving training is easy to use and pass along. Please share this message with your friends and family, or encourage them to read more about it at www.aha.org. If you have any questions regarding this training, do not hesitate to contact your local EMS providers.
That's all for this edition of Second Alarm. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call at 509-625-7000, or you can send us an email at fire@spokanefire.org. Thanks again for watching and stay safe.